Good morning. I would like to go ahead and call to order our Forest Reserve District Board of Commissioners Thursday, March 9th meeting. If we could please start with the salute to the flag. Tim.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Shall we pray? Gracious Father, we thank you, Lord, for the Forest Preserve District of Will County once again. Thank you for the Board of Commissioners, our President, and all the Forest Preserve staff. Now, Lord, we ask you blessing upon this agenda as you called us to do our work, as we go forth to do the work that you called us for. In our Lord's name we do pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. I would like to welcome Nick Ryder with the Farmers Weekly, Mr. Lashley with the Cell Town, and Mike Mallett. If we could please have roll call.
Sure. Summers? Here. Ogala? Here. Singer? Moostis?
Here.
Moran?
Present.
Rice? Here. Harris?
Here.
Trenier? Here. Fritz? Benefield?
Here.
Gould?
Here.
Balish?
Here.
Frizzalone?
I am here.
Brooks?
Here.
Winfrey? Here. Parker? Staley Ferry? Here. Markham?
Here.
Dollinger? Here. Mayor? Tuminello?
Here.
Weigel?
Here.
Perlitis?
Here.
Ferry?
Here.
And Hart. 24 present.
Thank you, Judy. Next we have presentation of certificate of mailing and certificate of publication. We have a motion, by, second by Brooks. Roll call, please.
Summers?
Yes.
Ogala, yes. Moostis?
Yep.
Moran?
Yes.
Rice? Yes. Harris?
Yes.
Trenier?
Yes.
Fritz? Yes. Benefield?
Yes.
Gould?
Yes.
Balish?
Yes.
Frizzalone?
Yes.
Brooks?
Aye.
Winfrey? Parker? Yes. Staley Ferry?
Yes.
Markham?
Yes.
Dollinger? Yes. Mayor? Oh, sorry. Tuminello?
Yes.
Weigel?
Yes.
Perlitis?
Yep.
Ferry?
Yes.
And Hart.
Yes.
23 affirmative.
Great. Motion carries. Okay, the next we need approval of minutes for February 9th, 2017. Motion by Fritz, second by Trenier, previous roll by Parker, second by Rice. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Treasurer's report. Jim.
Okay. Good morning. We have revenues of February 28th. Operating statements indicate the district's corporate fund collected approximately $131,000 in total revenues, of which approximately $58,000 is related to replacement taxes, $9,400 are rental and catering fees at Four Rivers facility in Shanahan, and approximately $38,000 in permit fees, and the remaining balance is attributable to miscellaneous revenue. On the expenditure side, the district has incurred approximately $1.5 million in expenditures for the period ended February 28, 2017. The district experienced a net operating loss of approximately $1.4 million. The district will draw on its unassigned fund balances to pay for the shortfall. Unless there's any questions for me, I'll make a motion to place the treasury report on file.
Motion by Eustace, second by Dollinger, previous roll by Staley Ferry, second by Moran. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay. Is there any petitions from the public? Being none, finance.
Lieutenant,
Yes.
You were trying to say something?
Yeah, I
Yeah, he's
I
gonna
said it
be-
to speak.
Oh,
This is what I need to speak.
We'll put him in.
oh.
But thank you. Thank you for watching. Okay, ready.
Thank you. First on the agenda is the schedule of bills in the amount of $368,399.91, and I so move.
Motion by Manella, second by Ballage. Previous roll by Brooks, second by Ferry. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
The only order of business we have is the approval of resolution number 17-04, authorizing the renewal of the I M canal lease addendum with the Illinois Department of Natural Resources. Committee's recommendation was 10-0, and I so move.
Motion by Manella, second by Weigel. Previous roll by Brooks, second by Moran. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Our next meeting date is Wednesday, April 5th, 2017, immediately following the operation. Thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Okay. Mike,
Good morning, Forest Reserve of Will County.
good morning.
We have two pieces of business today. First up is the award of professional services contract with WBK Engineering LLC of St. Charles, Illinois, in the amount of $48,834.17 for Hannel Woods Dam modification or removal evaluation phase 1. Committee recommended 7-0, and I so move.
Motion by Griswold, second by Parker. Previous roll by Rice, second by Ferry. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Next up is the award of professional services contract to Hampton, Lenzini, and Renwick, Inc. of Elgin, Illinois, in the amount of $34,824 for the engineering services for veteran woods improvements. The committee recommended approval 7-0, and I so move.
Motion by Mike, second by Moran. Previous roll by Parker, second by Prolitis. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Next up is the award of contract to Brancato Landscaping, Inc. of Elk Grove Village, Illinois, in the amount of $77,120 for tree replacement planting at various preserves. The committee recommended approval 7-0, and I so move.
Motion by Griswold, second by Gould. Previous roll by Moulton, second by Summers. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Award of contract to Knight Engineering Architects, Inc. of Bolingbrook, Illinois, in the amount not to exceed $34,552.80 for our annual district bridge inspection. The committee recommended approval 7-0, and I so move.
Motion by Griswold, second by Eustace. Previous roll by Ferry, second by Summers. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
We have the award of contract to Wright Automotive of Hillsborough, Illinois, in the amount of $28,225 each for the purchase of two 2017 Ford F-150 Super Crew pickup trucks using the State of Illinois Joint Purchasing Contract. Committee recommended approval 7-0, and I so move.
Motion by Griswold, second by Manella. Previous roll by Harris, second by Moran. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
We have the approval of Resolution 17-03, authorizing an intergovernmental agreement for design, construction, and maintenance of public bikeway along Black Road in the city of Joliet and the village of Shorewood. Committee recommended approval 9-0, and I so move.
Motion by Griswold, second by Gould. Previous roll by Moran, second by Stanley Ferry. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
And we have approval of ordinance number 502, authorizing the utility license to Jussur LLC at Lockport Newton Trail Preserve. Committee recommended 9-0, and I so move.
Motion by Griswold, second by Dollinger. Previous roll by Parker, second by Rice. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
I don't know how this is possible, but I don't have any reports this month. That's the first month I've never had a report. But our next meeting date will be Wednesday, April 5th, 2017, at 8:30 a.m.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Ad hoc Rules Committee. Harry.
Good morning, Madam President. We did not have a meeting in the month of March or February. It's beginning to feel lonely here. The next meeting will be announced soon. That's all I have.
Thank you. Nice and quiet under here. Okay. There's nothing for executive session today. And now we will go ahead and bring Mike for comments by the public. And Michael, what is your Franceschi?
Franceschi, yes.
Can you please come up?
Sure. Where would you like me to
Right
stand?
here, please.
Great.
Maybe.
I have a little bit of a handout. Is that okay if I distribute that? Or?
It should be in. Oh, this is about the bonus.
So, well, thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak. I would also thank some of the commissioners that took time out of their schedule over the last couple of weeks to speak with me regarding this matter. Those commissioners are Balich, Benefield, Dollinger, Ferry, Staley, Ferry, and Gould, who have all taken time out of their busy day to listen to my concerns. For 20 years, I've had a very amicable relationship with the Forest Preserve District of Will County. Officer Lieutenant Dan and I go way back. He can certainly vouch for our good relationship. Recently, I've been accessing a private hunting spot off of Book Road in the Riverview Farm Stand for the last 20 years. For 20 years, I've driven my vehicle down Book Road and accessed the site without restriction. I won't be quitting my professional job as a graphic designer anytime soon, but I kind of gave you guys a couple of visual aids of the plat. Up until about 2006, there was a gate for the Forest Preserve that was installed north of my duck line. In 2006, based upon my good relationship with Deb Specht, we were able to negotiate to move that gate south about 400 yards. In doing so, we eliminated trespassers. We also eliminated littering and dumping, just based upon the good relationship. It was agreed that we would maintain a key to the gate, both myself, the landowner, me as a licensee, and the Forest Preserve District of Will County. On December 12th of 2016, some trespassers came down the river and hunted. There's a visual aid that demonstrates exactly where they set up and how they shot. Those trespassers shot directly into the Forest Preserve. They shot directly towards the houses that border 111th Street in that subdivision. And as a result of that, I think Commissioner Maher, I don't want to speak for them, but Commissioner Maher, Commissioner President Hart basically received a number of complaints in their district regarding the hunting activities that go on at the Riverview Farm Stand. As such, I was contacted by Commissioner Maher on January 12th. I did set up a site visit with Commissioner Maher for January 19th, where I was going to walk the site with him and show him the concerns of public safety I had. Commissioner Maher did not show or call for that appointment. Rather, I was no-show, and I did meet with Officer Dave, Lieutenant Dave, and we did walk the site. So long and short is, basically the Forest Reserve has asked me to sign a special use permit to now access the site. A professional land survey was done, which showed that essentially that they now, I have to, part of Book Road, I guess, according to the Forest Reserve District and Ralph, that they pretty much own part of Book Road, is what they're claiming. And they've asked me to sign a special use permit to access Book Road. In regards to that, I have just really quick, I have 5 concerns with signing a special use permit I want to present to you guys, and then you guys can ultimately decide how you should handle this. But the number 1 concern is an annexation agreement dated March 9th, 2001, annexed Book Road and called for the vacation of Book Road. According to my engineers at Semcon Engineering, no such platification has ever been filed with the county, which means the 66-foot public right-of-way would remain open. I have not seen or been presented with anything that would suggest the Forest Preserve can assert ownership over right-of-way that would be vacated. Number two, Ralph has made it clear that he will not allow me to have vehicular access, that I present a special risk. I hunt with Steve Jakanowski, and Commissioner Ferry, you'll like this. Steve's a 77-year-old retired local 150 union operating engineer, okay? Steve diabetes has gotten the best of Steve. Steve has a prosthetic leg. It is not reasonable for Steve Jakanowski to have to walk based upon a special use permit 400 feet from where the current pylon has now been installed to basically where my hunting location is. I hunt with Zach Corcoran. Zach's age 18. He's an adult child, or an adult now, but tragically Zach's father was decapitated 2 years ago. His family's friends in the Bronx. I give Zach access to my site. I sent an email to Commissioner Schultz, or to the Chief Operations Officer Schultz. I wanted to inquire whether or not Zach would be have to sign such a permit, and I still have not heard back on that. But because he's a student, I typically let him go whenever his schedule allows. I've been driving on that road for 20 years. I've never had a single problem or issue. I carry $2 million in general liability, $500,000 each occurrence. I've never had a single DNR violation, me or anyone in my group in the 20 years we've been there. I've never had a single Forest Preserve ordinance violation, which Lieutenant Dave can vouch to as well. I asked Ralph, if we are going to, let's assume that the Forest Preserve does own the road, and that the road does get vacated, which is still a big possibility. I asked Ralph for a multi-year deal, and he said that because of the special risk I present, no multi-year deal would be possible. I'm on the Center for Disability Services Board. I'm a former board member of the Rainbow Council of Boy Scouts. I am a board member at Sportsmen for Charity. I'm president of Friday Night Lights, a charity that provides money to cancer survivors. I'm not sure exactly which special risk I present, but evidently no multi-year deal is possible. And the light the Forest Preserve does own the road, I would say that I would be more than willing to enter into a special use permit. I would just like some certainty. You guys are very busy. I respect your time. I don't want this board will change. There'll be a new Ralph Schultz. There'll be a new Suzanne Hart. And I'd like some certainty so that I don't have to continue to fight this. I have a 3- and 4-year-old child. I own my own business. I have a lot to get to at home. So a couple other things. In signing any sort of special use permit, I'd be giving up some legal rights, namely legal rights easement by prescription rights that I may have if I were to take this to court. I've also included in your packet something that's called hunter interference laws, which basically is a state statute that basically lays it out that you can't impede the progress of somebody who's easement or ingress or egress to somebody that's legally accessing the site. A couple last mistruths, and I appreciate your time. There was a complaint of littering on the site, which basically amounted to somebody going on private property, collecting 3 Pepsi cans and maybe a dozen used shotgun shells, putting them in a pile and taking a picture of them. These items wouldn't even comprise an entire snow shovel, maybe a garden shovel worth of garbage. But one of the complaints that I've heard over and over is that we were littering. The other thing that was said was that there was a previous signed agreement. If anybody can present me with the previous agreement that I signed, I'd be willing to make a very sizable donation to the Forest Preserve District of Will County, because no such agreement ever existed. With that, I would just say that we use the facility, the duck season in Illinois, 60 days. We use the line on Saturday mornings, 8 times a year on average. We are gone by 10 o'clock, there at 6, and gone by 10 a.m. 90% of the time. And I'm just trying to maintain my rights as a licensee of the Bronx. Thank you.
Well, I think I can talk loud enough. I'm somewhat aware of Mr. Brinchevsky's concerns because I know my partner Brian Kopman has had some discussions with staff about it. I will take a look at this material and I'll report back to the Operations Committee at the next regular meeting.
did you have?
I did just want to let everybody know, in case you're unfamiliar with the special use permit, it is a standard permit that we issue administratively within the district. And we issue those permits whenever there's a use on the property that would be technically a violation of our general use ordinance. Typically, a utility company may need to come in to do some maintenance on a utility line. Maybe it's a private contractor that needs to do some work for a local road organization. So we issue those permits on a regular basis. They're standard. There is a permit fee typically for them. It's $50. In this case, we'll waive the fee. We can also do that. The term on a special use permit of 1 year it's an annual permit. Some of those permits are issued for 1 day. Some are issued for 1 week. What we try to get at is, when is the use going to be taking place? In this instance, there's 3 different areas of our ordinance that Mr. Brincheski would be in violation of. So carrying this permit allows him to be in violation of that. The first would be to be in the preserve after hours. Our preserves are open from 8 a.m. to sunset. As he indicated, he would be in the site at 6 a.m., which is outside of those hours. The second would be to bring an animal, alive or dead, across Forest Preserve property. We consider that contraband, and so this again would allow him to take any of the ducks that he were to shoot across Forest Preserve property. And the last would be to have a weapon in the Forest Preserve, which is, again, also a violation of our ordinance. So that is what the special use permit would contain and allow him to do.
Jim, did you?
Well, Ralph just answered some of my questions, but I will tell you that, first, on the road, we should absolutely make sure that, it sounds to me that generally when we buy property, the road's not vacated. So I don't know, so I really wanted to ask about the road, but Dick, you're going to research.
That's the first thing I have down on my list.
And the other, how long have we owned this property?
We've owned the property since 2004.
I have some concerns. I want you to know that I'm generally pretty supportive of staff, and then there's also a lot I say to myself, is this a little overreach? This man's rights were there well before 2004, and if he's a licensee and we block this, it's almost a taking of his rights or the property. And that's what concerns me, that all of a sudden we buy something, whether it's here or somewhere else, and we got a strip that goes across, and now you're going to deny access to another property, something they've used for many, many years. I think we need to step back and really take a look at this. And were we aware of this in 2004?
The first record that I have is from 2008.
Okay. Well, I guess my point is that this man had a prior right, and just because we bought property, just that his rights go away. I look at it this way: either he has the right to go there, and he doesn't need any permit of any kind because it was a prior right use of his property or the property he leases. Dick, that's what I'm kind of looking at. I'm looking at maybe a little bit broader, kind of, when we buy something, if it's a taking, and now we've taken his rights away, then we owe him money.
Jim, and I want to look at this, but you may have a right to access, you may not have a right to do things like bring weapons or bring live or dead animals. I don't know. I mean, I really don't know, and so
here again,
these are things that we got to look at.
I think that I might even disagree in regards to hunters, whether they cross our property with their shotguns, for example. It's limited what kind of weapons they can use for hunting in the state. Whether we should be, I think there should be rules, like maybe it needs to be not loaded or whatever. It's not like they're in our forces are hunting or with weapons. They're walking through, whatever, 400 feet, 500 feet, they're walking through a strip. And that's, I don't believe, the intent of our ordinance about carrying weapons in the forest reserve. The intent is not to stop somebody who needs to walk 100 feet, in my view. So it's like, how far do you want to, some things are how you apply it. And sometimes in life, you look the other way a little bit.
I think that's what has been done.
So I guess what I'm saying is I'm more concerned about this gentleman, and just in general. If we denied access when we bought a property, and you tell them, well, they can no longer use it for what they've always used it for. That to me is denying them access, or denying them, or kind of a taking of their property. Because if that was the intended use, and now you're saying, well, you can no longer use it for that, and I think there's a bigger question. So I guess what I'm saying, Ralph, I think you have to be very careful on how you apply these types of ordinances and consider things like having taken persons' rights, property rights away. Because if that was what they were using it for, and that's what they've always used it for that 8 weeks out of the year, and believe me, I'm no hunter, I don't know, I don't get it sometimes. Guy wants to sit in a duck blind, hoping a duck flies by. I don't quite get it. I could get it. Maybe I'm smoking a cigar and shooting the breeze a little bit. But so this is about, I think, more about property rights, and that we don't inadvertently take somebody's rights away for the use of their property. And because they have the right to use that property any way they see fit. If we limit it, I think that opens us up to a potential liability and lawsuit. So, and by the way, I think we're better off coming to some type of an agreement with this gentleman and not going into the courts with it. So.
Okay, really quick, I'm going to say this is 2 miles from my house. This is a new, farm stand. Remember when they did, it was even before I was on the board, they did the big, reception and opening it up, and Naperville came out and Plainfield. And Jim, if you, I would definitely welcome all of you to come out and see this. It's beautiful. It's getting more and more populated. I'm getting calls because Book Road ends. It comes in to the parking lot, and then it ends. So there has been, and like Mike said, I have received calls going, look, I'm on a bike, and it looks like it's part of the trail now. I'm on a bike, and then there's a car there. Or why is there a blind in the forest reserve? No, sorry, because imagine this whole room is our forest reserve. The land that they have is like the size of this desk.
It's a 70-acre parcel.
It's, the part that you're using. So with that, right, but where the blind is, so it becomes, and it's off of the road, and we have the road. So my concern was definitely more so of the car access. And we're not saying, and this is someone you're using, the Brock family, you got access to use it, which has been wonderful, you've been doing that. And this was all from Paul Lehman, and it was Passion. So it was donated to us when they went and developed High Meadow. I think it was High Meadow, the subdivision, just adjacent to there. And they had donated. And we had gone before, this is when you guys were all, on the board, I was not on yet, and they went and developed the forest reserve. We developed that whole area. So now we have walking paths, it's got a nice little pavilion. So this has just been, so I definitely understand what you're saying. In no way do we want to take that access. You could go on there, but the whole idea, and my concern was the whole idea of it all driving on this area where people now think that that is a path. And I've ran on that path, I've cycled on that path, so that was my concern. But I definitely think For you getting this permit once a year, that is absolutely appropriate. And you're correct, we should not deny that.
I just think once a year is a little bit, you guys are busy. You guys have more important issues than some duck hunter on the
they can
DuPage
do that
River.
later.
I mean, there's going to be a new Ralph Schultz. There'll be a new President Hart. And I'll be subjected to this again. And I'm also going to say that, I forgot to mention this, but I put a copy of a letter that I sent the Forest Reserve District from 4.5 years ago. I paid an attorney to do all the research on what is legal and what is not legal around firearms and rivers and the whole deal. And I sent it to them, and it was basically ignored. Because I knew this public safety concern, Susan, was going to come about because these trespassers, and it's not safe. These guys boat up north of Maine, and they shoot back right into your preserve. It's 60 yards to the center of the road from where they shoot. So
I agree with you.
we got to get them out of there.
Steve? Yeah, no, I agree with you.
Yeah, one of the things, listening to what he said, what happens if he signs a special use permit and every year it gets renewed? And now when like 3 years from now, there's a new board and everything, and all of a sudden they don't want to renew the permit. Does he lose his rights to an easement by prescription or adverse possession case by signing the special use permit?
The permit would not allow, would not, in a sense, be a license. It's a permit. It doesn't provide him any of the rights that an easement.
What I'm getting at is, right now, I don't know for sure.
He's
I'm guessing that he
asking.
could file an adverse possession case because it's been more than the time period, and you could probably get an easement for prescription. I can't say the word right, but because he has to have access to that property through the road. So that's just me. I'm not a lawyer, but would he lose? That's something we need to address, because you don't want him to lose that right where future boards say we're not going to give you the permit, and now he lost the right to get legal jurisdiction to use it.
Right. The property in question actually extends out to Naperville Plainfield Road. The barrier that is caused for him to access it through private property is the DuPage River. Just as he had indicated, there are voters who are hunting on the river, which hunting on the river is legal. There are some restrictions and there are some rules that have to be followed, and we're aware that some folks have not done that. But he could gain access from the east, he could gain access from the river, just as those others do. So while, in the future years, as you indicated, 3, 4, 5, 10 years down the road, somebody could say, well, we're not going to issue special use permits anymore. Then Plan B comes in, and that's to access the property.
Well, my question really goes back to, does he lose by saying I'm going to get a special use permit, then adverse possession's off the table, and for sure. And then what about the easement by prescription? Is that off the table too? Because he needs to know that.
Steve, there's no adverse possession here.
There is?
There may be some kind of prescriptive right. I made a note on that. I'll check.
I mean, that's something important for this gentleman to know when he's making the agreement.
Ray, did you have?
Yes, is this river navigable?
It's defined as a non-navigable waterway by the IDNR.
Okay, so if one of your only ways to get on there is through the river and it's non-navigable, I don't see how that's possible. But anyway, I'm curious.
Yes.
To clarify, non-navigable does not mean you can't have a boat on it. It's restricting certain sizes of boats. And so when the IDNR classifies things as navigable and non-navigable, so many of our streams in Will County would be considered non-navigable waterways, but you can put a kayak and a canoe or something like that.
And we have a launch there.
It's non-navigable according to the IDNR. You need a special, because of the composition of the depth of the water, you actually need a special motor if you're going to use the flow of the water. And to Ralph's point about the access to the east, you can see on your map is a quarry. There's a single lane road that goes back there. That road is caved in more times than you can ever imagine in the last 50 years. It's not a safe road.
Okay.
I would hate to think that either myself, a child, one of my constituents would fall to their death to either side of the quarry trying to access some duck blind from the east.
Okay, so my question is for Ralph, what what is the actual portion of the property that the Forest Preserve owns? Because I see a large area to the east of the residential area. The Forest Preserve, do we own all that vacant property or just the sliver east by the road?
We own we own a straight line up from, if you see on the first map that he has, there's a purple arrow that says
Yes.
New Pylon.
Yep.
If you drew a line straight north
Okay.
from there, everything to the west is Forest Preserve property. Everything to the east is the Braun property.
So the west
Forest
up into
Preserve
the subdivision is Forest Preserve
is
property?
Forest Preserve, yeah. There is a road right of way. When we talk about Brook Road and his access, that was a vacated roadway. When Naperville approved the development of the High Meadow and South Point subdivisions, a new Brook Road right of way was dedicated immediately immediately east of those subdivisions. So that road was not constructed, but is still on the city of Naperville's books. So
But
it's
just to be clear, the actual duck line is to the east of our eastern property line.
correct. And so the access issue,
Yeah.
if you can see on that map,
It's terrible.
and you see the kind of the gravel surface of the old Brook Road, it bends a little bit to the west. Where it bends to the west, that's when it comes fully onto Forest Preserve property.
Okay. Thank you.
Darren?
Suzanne, I had just a couple of questions as well. Ralph, thank you for clarifying this map and what property we own. It actually further supports my thoughts that, which actually agree with Mr. Moses, that I don't believe that if this gentleman had rights to that property before we came along, and now we're trying to remove those rights or via a special use permit, that quite honestly could get approved or denied at some time in the future. I don't think that's the right avenue to take. He mentioned two things, but I do have a couple questions prior to that. The first one is how many yards approximately would you say that the quarry is from where the duck line actually is?
When you say quarry, are you saying at the bottom of the quarry?
Well, I'm seeing where your duck line is, and I'm trying to, in the relation, in my mind, I'm not a hunter.
Yeah, sure.
I'm just trying to determine, is there a safety issue here with possible employees on a quarry
Great
side?
question. There's a 60-foot hill, a hill that's 60 foot tall that we shoot directly into.
Okay.
So right on
So
the
you'd
front
be able
property.
to shoot
We
some
never
type of rainbow shots?
No rainbow shots, and the steel shot is basically lethal to about 70 yards, I would say, to a bird. There's no safe. Nobody's ever been sprayed in the quarry. We've never had a single complaint. We don't discharge firearms on or into Forest Preserve property. Okay. The concern for the Forest Preserve District is when I would typically when I had a key to the gate, which I've had for the last 10 years, when I've unlocked the gate, I would drive in with my weapon cased in my vehicle, and that's how I would transport my weapon.
Thank you.
Forest Preserve.
Yeah, I appreciate that. But my questions were two things that, and I'm going to mess up your last name, that Mr. Brzezinski stated. And those two things are special risk and actions that employees of the Forest Preserve may or may have not taken to prove littering. Can you clarify, Ralph, what is the special risk that Mr. Brzezinski?
I've never used the term special risk. I've used the term special use.
Okay.
A risk is anytime a person is on our property in a private vehicle, there is a risk to the Forest Preserve District, a liability, if we don't have proper proof of insurance. So I've never indicated he is a special risk any differently than a private contractor might be a special risk, but it's not a classification I would use, and it doesn't require a special use permit.
Okay. Secondly, Mr. Renzuski stated that there's been photographs provided to him of 3 Pepsi cans and some shotgun shells, which have been identified as littering. Is that what we do at the Forest Preserve to try to stop activities that we're not in agreement with? Do we capture Pepsi cans and take pictures and present them?
The photographs were not taken by the Forest Preserve staff.
Do you know?
I have never even seen.
You haven't, so you're not aware of that. My concern is the motive on that. I would not be happy if I heard any of our staff was acting like that and trying to present that type of case.
We don't do that.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Ted, did you have something?
Yeah, I have a question. Gentleman mentioned December 12th that there was an issue with some trespassers that people responded to. What I'd like to know is how many complaints have we actually gotten regarding that specific issue?
We have not received specific complaints directed to the Forest Preserve about people shooting into the Forest Preserve. What we've received are complaints regarding people on the river. And so when it's a somewhat, no pun intended, but murky area. The Forest Preserve District, in some areas, when we buy acreage, we may own a portion of the land that's under the water, so the riverbed, but we do not control the river itself, the water. So a person can float across the water and they can do whatever they want. We don't, they're under the laws of the state of Illinois. In order to hunt on the river, an individual must anchor his boat. Where that anchor falls, if it falls into that riverbed that the Forest Preserve might control, or it falls into a portion of the riverbed that the Bronx might control, or Vulcan Materials, or whatever, technically that individual who's hunting needs to have the permission of that landowner. So this is kind of new to us, so we are in the process now of putting together a plan to address this in the future. While we've had complaints, we've never had specific complaints. Complaints of just general shooting.
Okay.
We've never
So up to this point,
we've never had one where
not one.
Yeah.
Okay. How about the littering? How many complaints have we had of littering since this occurred?
We have not received those.
Okay, not one.
Complaints.
Okay.
No.
So this is just a recent occurrence. You did mention that, I just would like you to clarify a little bit when you talked about how his, him starting at 6 a.m., that small window that he talks about hunting. Is it the ordinance that will allow him, and excuse my ignorance on this, but you mentioned 8 a.m. to sunset, we have, is our hours at the Forest Preserve. You talk about bring any animals or use the term contraband across, and then you mentioned the weapon. How does that impact? Is it this usage, this road, this access, he can't cross with that, even if he was to get an ordinance? Or a special use permit?
With a special use permit, he can do all of those things.
No vehicular access.
Yeah, the only thing that would be restricted would be vehicular access.
And typically when you duck hunt, you have decoys, guns, heaters. I got a guy with a prosthetic leg. Without vehicular access, I have a 400-yard walk.
Either way.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, goodness, I am so sorry. Don?
No, I only have one question. What's the distance from your blind to the residential area that's behind?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you the last part of your question.
The distance from your blind to the residential area that's behind you on this picture.
I'm not, it's
Is
about
it over
600 yards.
Is it over 100 yards?
600 yards.
Thank you.
Are you that close?
I think it's about 600 yards is my guess. I would have my eyeballing. It might be give or take.
That was never my, you're not that close, you're even farther.
Just to clarify something that Ralph said, and I'm glad that we'll be hopefully enforcing it this fall, but yeah, you can put your anchor on Vulcan Materials and you're legal. But the second you discharge if you guys own half the river, and I discharge my firearm into your half the river, and my projectile goes into your half the river, I'm not trespassing. I'm not, that's a criminal offense. There's a letter from the attorney from Florida years ago that talks to that.
I guess I got another question. So It's 600 yards from your blind to the house, to the closest houses. That's right? To the west?
Yeah.
Give or take. And then, so even if there was trespassers that were hunting on the river, if they were discharging in the direction of those houses, their shot's not going anywhere near them.
The problem is with the trespassers is that Vulcan Material owns the east bank of the river. And when they have to anchor to Ralph's Point, when they anchor on Vulcan, they don't shoot, they're shooting directly back west. In conjunction with that, if you look at the map, you kind of stack your maps.
Even if they weren't on water, they'd be legal. If they had legal access to the property and they fired a shotgun 600 yards away from a house, they're still legal.
You're legal at 600 yards for sure. They're not 600 yards from a house. Because what happens is the subdivision actually bends back. If you put your maps together, the subdivision bends back. They're a lot closer. And they're shooting right towards the road where people walk their dogs, bike, jog, etc.
The picture you gave us, there's more houses to the north or something that come back in.
You look at the one that's got the second picture that's got the December 12th date on the top, and you kind of compare the two. You see where the subdivision starts to jog back.
Oh, I see where it turns. Yeah.
And that's a concern.
Jackie?
Oh, there's a house.
I'd just like to give the information before we continue to debate. We don't even have a question in front of us. He's given us some nice information. Our attorney's going to, check on the legalities of things. I mean, no offense, we're not deciding anything today, so it seems like we're asking an awful lot of questions without all the pertinent information.
Good, that's a very good point.
But I think the staff and the attorney needs to know what commissioners' concerns are in relation to this.
So they can appropriately, right.
I think the discussion is probably a good one.
I think we got, is there anyone else that has?
I think we've got that.
I think they have everything to go and take it for our next meeting for next month. And I just also want to kind of close with this. Just so you know, as you can tell by the questions and the comments in this room, in no way uncertain terms are we trying to get you where you're not going to get to have that access. We just need to kind of do this in a factual where we're doing this legally, safely. It sounds like you are absolutely a rule follower, and I told you that earlier when we had that call. I appreciate that more than you know. And we want you to go back on there. It definitely does in question when you're going down. I remember that, seeing that blind, and you're out there and you think, because that little piece, you think, oh my gosh, someone is hunting in the forest preserve. They're not doing, they shouldn't be doing that. But I found out, that's private property. Done. But these questions kind of go through. And it's also protecting you as well as protecting us. So we'll get to the bottom of it. We're going to do this right. And like I said, you have the support of our board, and we'll figure this out.
I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Oh, Jim?
I'd like to just make one other comment. Certainly this is not unique to the Naperville area. Frankfurt has the same issues. Homer Glen area has the same issues. We have a lot of forest reserve for residential subdivisions or residents come up to those preserves. People hunt around those preserves. I think sometimes they wander into our preserves. So I do think that the district and the staff of the district, there's real concern. I want to make it clear that this isn't just an issue that occurs here. This is nothing new. I've had these types of complaints from residents for the last 20 years. And so it is a tough issue for the district to try to make sure people aren't coming into our preserves and hunting and going through in larger groups with weapons, I suppose. But I did want to state that this is a countywide issue. It's not something that's unique. I know people in Naperville think they're unique. But it's not a unique issue, by the way.
Well, not everyone is responsible.
Chuck told me. Chuck already told me.
I also just wanted to throw out there too, this situation is also not unique to the Forest Preserve. There are places where we have acquired properties that straddle creeks, streams, rivers, and we too have to go to those landowners and ask permission to gain access to our property. So we're not asking anybody to do anything that we ourselves don't also do.
Well, how many of these permits do we have in the district? Just
Like this?
like for my, yeah.
0. We have one permit,
So you're unique.
yeah, your unit, yeah. We have one other situation where a local landowner donated a conservation easement to the Forest Preserve District, and with that conservation easement reserved the right to hunt on the property. So that's technically the only property where hunting is permitted, but again, we do not have full ownership, we just have a conservation easement. And we do issue a permit in that case just so that our police know. And really, that's what the permit does too. It alerts our police and our operations folks that somebody's out there doing something, they have permission to do it.
Thank you. Thank you very much for taking the time to explain this whole.
Appreciate it, thank you.
Do you have any comments, Dave, for?
No, I'm all commented on.
Okay. I do have one replacement hire for your consideration. At this time, I would ask for your approval to hire Matthew Yates as a full-time patrol officer at a starting salary at $45,231. Mr. Yates was selected from the patrol officers' new hire list approved by the Operations Committee on October 5th, 2016. If I can have a motion. Motion by Eustace, second by Ferry, previous roll by Moran, second by Gurley. Oh, do you have a question? Yes.
I didn't really want to.
I thought you were just motioning.
But you know, of course, the only question, I know the answer, but I like to do this anyway. This is not a additional patrolman. This is a replacement patrolman for someone who's retired or has left the district for whatever reason. Correct. Thanks.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. If I can have a motion to adjourn. Motion. Second by Ferry, previous row by Parker, second by Gurley. All in favor? Aye. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.